Do you want to just start off by telling me when you've kind of been involved in the Theatre Royal in Plymouth and what your kind of memories are of the theatre?
Yeah, so Plough has been co-producing, co-commissioning and working with Theatre Royal Plymouth for over 40 years, since we founded, really. And most recently, we were working with Theatre Royal Plymouth last year on a show called You Stupid Darkness by Sam Steiner, who's an amazing emerging writer, and his show debuted there, and then we transferred that into London this year. And we also have a co-commission with them at the moment of another brilliant writer, Sam Bailey. So I think that for us, it's been, it's such a massive loss. The impact on Theatre Royal Plymouth is not just going to be local, but it is going to be national and international, because they are, they have been, and one of the most important producers of new work. And for us, as a new writing touring company, we very much rely on partners like Theatre Royal Plymouth to make our work happen and to tour that around the country. So we co-produce all our work in partnership with different venues, and Theatre Royal Plymouth has been a long-standing partner within that. And so to think that that's going to drastically shift, and I just saw the news now, I don't know if you've just seen the news about the Nuffield in Southampton has now permanently closed its doors and hasn't found a buyer. And so we're sort of seeing this horrific, what feels like an inevitable crumble, actually, of some massive regional buildings. And the Theatre Royal Plymouth is one that particularly struck home for us at Plough, because we've been such long time partners with them, and really believe in the work that they do, as well as, the impact that they have within their community and beyond that.
I mean, do you think everything that's happening at the moment is really going to permanently shift how theatre looks in this country?
Yeah, hugely. I mean, I think there's a few things that we need first to kind of to survive. There's there's a real lack of clarity coming from the government on the roadmap which has been issued, which sort of is, gives some sense of direction of travel, but certainly kind of is basically a plan of logic, which is about starting work outdoors and then shifting that work indoors for theatres, and gradually kind of increasing your capacity, which sort of feels quite an obvious kind of, order of things that many of us have been talking about for months during lockdown anyway. So we'd sort of figured that bit out, as it were. So when that came out, it felt deeply frustrating, to be honest, because there was no dates attached to that. There's been no financial package of support attached to that, and without those things, theatre will not survive. It won't, and it isn't. We look at Nuffield, Southampton, we look at what's happening at Theatre Royal Plymouth. The Manchester Royal Exchange Theatre have just announced massive redundancies. These huge buildings that have felt so untouchable for such a long time are under real threat, and yet there still seems to be no action happening.
And obviously we trained with a lot of people like yourself who are still in that drama and theatre world. Do you think that people who were in the position that we were in sort of 10 years ago will now think, well, there are no jobs for graduates in theatre anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very overpopulated industry anyway, as we know. It's incredibly competitive. It's hard to get your foot in your door. I think that what we fear about at Plough as well is about the diversity of the voices that will continue to be able to kind of hustle their way into the industry, and how the impact of COVID is going to greatly narrow that. And, we're going to be doing everything in our power, certainly, to make sure that isn't the case, but certainly thinking about people coming from underrepresented backgrounds, particularly low socioeconomic backgrounds, and without that kind of band of support and confidence that money gives you, quite frankly, to take risk and to find your way into an industry that already kind of gives out quite clear signals that it's going to be very hard to get going in, feels really deeply worrying. I think it's a really hard time to be a graduate anyway. We're obviously going to hit a great economic crisis as well, but I think that it feels quite bleak, but that's the reality. I think that we're looking at the minute, whilst we still have no clarity on what support is going to be there to mitigate some of those concerns.
Do you think that, I mean, you've worked a lot in theatres in the north, and I think there are some parallels between the southwest and the north. They've both got kind of pockets of deprivation. You talked about those underrepresented communities. How important is it for especially young people in those communities to see live theatre, do you think?
Oh, I mean, it's vital, I think. I think that one of the things, so we're a touring company, and one of our projects is a small scale touring project, which we take out to about to over 30 venues now around the country. And it really goes around the houses. It goes to those small pockets of places where you think, is there a theatre here? And of course there is one, and it's totally rooted in its community. And we take new plays around to those communities on a yearly basis. And the impact that we've seen of that project as an example has been incredible in terms of the way that it engages new audiences, not only into the work that we take there, but then future work that venue programs, as well as other new work that continues to go there. And the feedback we get of just audiences being able to see new theatre on their doorstep, which is relevant to today, which is reflecting the world they live in today, which is challenging, which is inspiring, which is fun, which is adventurous. That is kind of what gets you hooked. And I'm from a small village outside Leeds, and certainly my first memories, I wasn't necessarily taken to the theatre when I was younger, but sort of going on school trips and things like that to see. I remember seeing Knee High actually at what was the West Yorkshire Playhouse, and just feeling like, oh, like this new play, and it was completely experimental and magical, and just made me think, that is theatre. Wow, that is what theatre is. And I think it really breaks down stereotypes of what people think of when they think of theatre. And it really is stories. It's just stories, and I think right now we need stories more than ever.